Richard Gerald Jordan holds a somber distinction in Mississippi's legal history. He is the state's longest-serving inmate on death row. His incarceration stems from a conviction for the 1976 murder of Edwina Marter. Mrs. Marter was the wife of a prominent bank executive in Gulfport, Mississippi. Jordan admitted his culpability in the crime shortly after his arrest. His guilt in the killing itself has not been a significant point of contention throughout the subsequent legal proceedings. The defining characteristic of Jordan's case is the series of successful legal challenges mounted against his sentence. These appeals have repeatedly overturned the penalty imposed by the courts. As a result of these legal battles, Richard Jordan has been sentenced to death on 4 separate occasions. Each sentence was later vacated through appellate review. By the year 2022, Jordan had become the oldest inmate awaiting execution in Mississippi. His tenure on death row surpassed that of any other individual in the state. As of February 2024, Richard Gerald Jordan remains confined on death row. His legal challenges continue, but a date for his execution has been set. His execution is currently scheduled to occur on June 25, 2025. This date marks the culmination of nearly 5 decades of legal process. Give a like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Richard Gerald Jordan was born on May 25, 1946. His birthplace was Hattiesburg, Mississippi. He spent his formative years growing up in the nearby town of Petal, Mississippi. His early life appears unremarkable in public records. Jordan served in the United States Army for a period of 4 to 5 years. This service included a tour of duty during the Vietnam War. By the mid-1970s, Jordan was married. He had 3 children, establishing a family life in Mississippi. However, by January 1976, Jordan found himself in dire circumstances. He was unemployed and facing significant financial hardship. This desperation for money led him to conceive a criminal plan. He devised a plot centered on kidnapping an individual from a wealthy family. The objective was to secure a substantial ransom payment. To execute his plan, Jordan traveled to Gulfport, Mississippi. This coastal city was chosen as the location for the intended crime. He contacted Gulf National Bank, seeking information about its employees. Through this contact, he learned the name Chuck Marter, identified as a commercial loan officer. Jordan then consulted a local telephone directory. He located the residential address for Chuck Marter. On the morning of January 12, 1976, Jordan drove to the Marter home. He intended to carry out the kidnapping. He gained entry to the residence by deception. Jordan pretended to be an electric company worker, a common ruse to bypass security. Once inside, he proceeded to kidnap Edwina Marter. She was taken from her own home against her will. Notably, Edwina Marter's 3-year-old son was present in the house at the time. The child was left behind, asleep, during the abduction. Jordan forced Edwina Marter into his vehicle. He then compelled her to drive them to a remote location. Their destination was DeSoto National Forest. This area provided isolation suitable for his criminal purpose. Within the forest, Richard Jordan fatally shot Edwina Marter. She was killed by a single gunshot wound to the head. The precise circumstances surrounding the shooting became a point of contention in court. Jordan claimed Mrs. Marter attempted to flee, prompting him to fire. The state argued the evidence indicated a close-range killing, contradicting his account. Following the murder, Jordan proceeded with the second phase of his plan. He contacted Chuck Marter to demand ransom. The initial demand was for $50,000. Jordan sought this sum for the return of Edwina Marter. Crucially, Jordan falsely informed Chuck Marter that his wife was still alive. This deception was intended to ensure cooperation with the ransom demand. Jordan then attempted to collect the ransom money from Chuck Marter. A location and method for the exchange were arranged. However, during the initial planned money drop, Jordan observed law enforcement presence. This detection forced him to abandon the immediate attempt. He contacted Marter again after the failed attempt. Jordan provided a new plan for the money exchange and reduced the ransom demand. The The revised amount was $25,000. On January 13th, Jordan attempted to retrieve the money left by Marter according to the new instructions. He sought to complete the transaction. He initially evaded law enforcement surveillance. However, authorities located and arrested him later that same day. Upon his arrest, law enforcement recovered most of the ransom money. The funds were found in Jordan's possession. Following his apprehension, Jordan made a significant admission to police officers. He confessed to killing Edwina Marter. He subsequently led investigators to the location of her body and the weapon used in the crime. Richard Jordan's first trial took place in 1976. He was found guilty of capital murder. Under the law at that time, a guilty verdict in a capital case resulted in an automatic death sentence. Jordan received this sentence immediately upon conviction. However, this first death sentence was subsequently vacated. The legal basis for this was the unconstitutionality of automatic death sentences, as determined by the U.S. Supreme Court. A second trial was held in 1977. Jordan was again found guilty of the murder. This time, a separate sentencing hearing was conducted after the guilt phase. The jury returned a verdict imposing a second death sentence. The second death sentence was also appealed. It was successfully challenged on constitutional grounds related to improper jury instructions provided during the sentencing phase. A new sentencing hearing was ordered and took place in 1983. This proceeding resulted in the imposition of a third death sentence for Jordan. The third death sentence was set aside in 1986. This decision came from the United States Supreme Court. The ruling was related to issues concerning the presentation and consideration of mitigating evidence during sentencing. Following the Supreme Court's decision, the Mississippi Supreme Court ordered yet another sentencing hearing. This directive was issued in 1987. In 1991, a significant development occurred. A plea deal was offered to Jordan by the prosecution. The terms of the agreement were life without parole. In exchange, Jordan was required to waive all future appeals regarding his sentence. Jordan accepted this plea deal. He was formally sentenced to life without parole, seemingly resolving the protracted sentencing phase. However, Jordan subsequently violated the terms of the plea agreement. He initiated legal challenges against the life without parole sentence itself. His argument centered on whether such a sentence was legally permissible under the specific statute in effect in 1976, the year of the crime. The courts reviewed Jordan's challenge to the plea agreement. They ultimately found that the agreement was improper based on the legal arguments raised. Consequently, they granted him a new sentencing hearing. The fourth sentencing hearing in the case of Richard Jordan occurred in 1998. This was more than 2 decades after the original crime. At this hearing, Jordan was once again sentenced to death. This marked the 4th time a jury or court had imposed capital punishment in his case. Jordan appealed this 4th death sentence. Among the grounds for appeal was an allegation of prosecutorial vindictiveness, arguing the state sought death in retaliation for his successful appeals. The United States Supreme Court reviewed the claim of prosecutorial vindictiveness. In 2015, the court ruled against Jordan on this specific issue, upholding the state's right to seek the death penalty. Despite the Supreme Court's 2015 ruling, Richard Jordan's legal challenges have continued. Recent objections have shifted focus to different aspects of the execution process. A primary area of recent legal contention involves the constitutionality of Mississippi's lethal injection protocol. Jordan and other inmates have challenged the specific drugs used. Jordan has specifically challenged the use of certain drugs included in the state's execution cocktail. These challenges often raise concerns about the risk of pain or suffering, potentially violating constitutional protections against cruel and unusual punishment. These legal challenges have significantly contributed to delays in carrying out his execution. The litigation process itself takes considerable time. Furthermore, the state of Mississippi has faced practical difficulties. Obtaining the necessary drugs for lethal injection has become increasingly challenging due to pharmaceutical company policies and regulations. Legal challenges have also been filed against the state's attempts to use alternative or compounded drugs. The use of drugs like midazolam in the execution protocol has been a particular point of legal dispute. In response to legal challenges and drug availability issues, Mississippi passed a new death penalty statute in 2017. This law outlined a specific 3-drug cocktail for executions and also provided for alternative execution methods if lethal injection is unavailable. Jordan subsequently challenged the use of midazolam under the provisions of this new statute. His legal team argued against its suitability and constitutionality as an execution drug. As of February 2024, Gerald Jordan remains on death row in Mississippi. His case continues to navigate the complex landscape of capital punishment law. After decades of legal proceedings and multiple overturned sentences, an execution date has been set. Jordan's execution is currently scheduled for June 25, 2025. This date represents the potential final chapter in a case that has spanned nearly 50 years and tested numerous facets of the American legal system.